The second explanation of the 7 heads is this: they are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for a little while. The beast who once was, and now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7, and is going to his destruction. Revelation refers to a list of 7 emperors. The first 5 have already died: Augustus, founder of the empire; Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. The 6th emperor, the current ruler at the time of John and the writing of this book, was Vespasian. The 7th, who would remain for a little while, was Titus, who reigned for only 2 years. In the next verse, the angel introduces the 8th king and identifies him as the beast. Of the beast, he says, "He who once was, and now is not, is an 8th king." The personification of the beast manifests itself in the image of persecuting emperors. It was because of the empire's political stance and anti-Christian oppression that they became the beast. The first 4 emperors, Augustine, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius, didn't persecute the church during their reigns. Thus, during their reigns, the empire does not appear as a beast. The beast, however, makes its appearance in the person of Nero, who, in this list, is the first to openly persecute Christians. When Rome burned in 64 AD, Nero himself was accused of setting the fire. He, on the other hand, held the faithful responsible and launched a cruel persecution against them. Tertullian wrote in 197 AD, "Consult your annals. There you will find that Nero was the first to wreak the fury of the sword of the Caesars upon this sect, now springing up especially at Rome." Nero committed suicide in 68, and with his death came the end of the persecution. The beast was, but is no more. John writes his book under the reign of Vespasian. The time period when the beast is no more is during the time when Rome is not oppressing Christians. Neither Vespasian nor Titus his son engaged in the battle against the church. But when Domitian comes into the picture, the beast is revived to life. He is the one who brings about the second persecution. Because of his bloodthirsty cruelty, Domitian was considered by Christians, as well as those outside the church, as a new Nero. Domitian's end would come in 96 AD. A few years after he commenced the persecution against the church, he was assassinated. We see then that the beast lived and persecuted the church in the form of Nero. He was resurrected in the person of Domitian. But we cannot lose sight of the most essential point for the first readers of John's book. There was little time left before the coming of a new king and persecutor, Domitian. It was Domitian who would begin a period of persecution that would last more than 200 years. Next, the angel interprets the 10 horns of the beast. These horns represent the heads of the nations who had allied themselves with Rome. Who was it that allied themselves with her against the Lamb? The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. This verse announces the fall of the depraved capital, victim of the nations that had helped to establish around her. The people turned against their former mistress, humiliating and destroying her. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. What great city was ruling over the world during the time of John? Rome, and Rome alone fits this description. The interpreting angel now gives his place to another angel who descends through the sky to make his announcement. "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a home for demons and a haunt for every evil spirit, a haunt for every unclean and detestable bird." A second celestial messenger announces the principles of justice that God will use in order to determine Rome's sentence. Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. In the height of her power, Rome believed that she would always be the world's superpower. Therefore, her humiliation will be all the more bitter. In her heart she boasts, I sit as queen. I'm not a widow, and I will never mourn. Therefore in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her. As the city is reduced to nothing more than ashes, 3 groups lament over her burning. The allied kings of the empire, the merchants who had grown rich with her cargoes, and the sailors who earned their living from the sea. With the fall of the city came the fall of the prosperity of the ancient world. After this, an angel took an enormous stone and threw it into the sea. Imperial Rome will be drowned, never to rise again. 3 crimes justified the ruin of Rome: her unmeasured pride, her influence of corruption over the people, and her savage violence against the church. It is not astonishing that with the fall, shouts of triumph burst from the sky. He has condemned the great prostitute who corrupted the earth by her adulteries. He has avenged on her the blood of his servants. The judgment on their enemies constituted for the faithful an occasion of great joy. Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory, for the wedding of the Lamb has come. The city of Rome, Babylon the Great, has now disappeared from the scene. The 2 beasts still remain, with only their defeats to be counted against them. At the turning of the 6th bowl, they had gathered their armies for the battle of Armageddon. The vision of this battle opens with a description of Christ, the dispenser of justice. Out of his mouth comes forth a sword, sharp with its purpose to exterminate his unrighteous adversaries. On his robe and on his thigh he has this name written: King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Christ is accompanied by the army, who are his faithful people, marching onward after their victory over Rome. An angel appears and calls all the birds of prey to come and eat the flesh of the dead. The Roman Empire, along with Satan and the imperial religion, mobilized the allying kings in order to attack the King of Kings. The armies are now under the command of the beast. After the vanquishing of the great prostitute, the persecuting empire and the imperial religious must take their turn. But the beast was captured, and with him the false prophets. The 2 of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is a traditionally biblical image to show that one has been irreparably defeated at the hands of God. No one arises from the lake of fire. As for the armies that allied themselves with the beast, they are killed with the sword that came from the mouth of Christ. The birds of prey descend upon their flesh. Rome has now been removed from the scene by way of 3 apocalyptic personifications: Babylon, the great prostitute, and the 2 beasts. But the judgment scene isn't quite finished. There are still 2 members of the opposing army who are yet to be defeated: the great dragon and the pagan Romans. Looking first at the dragon, or rather Satan, the instigator of Rome. An angel comes with a chain in order to bind him, throw him into the abyss, closing the door and locking it with the key. The image of the dragon's binding is symbolic and signifies the neutralization of Satan's power against the church by the Roman Empire. Satan is imprisoned for 1,000 years. This number represents totality, in that Satan is completely bound and unable to continue oppression of God's people by means of the Romans.